The answers to some of the most difficult challenges come from within the organization, not without. It's those kinds of behaviors, taking risks, being creative, that organizations need more than ever from their workforce. And when fear is a part of it, all of those very desirable behaviors and actions actually stop.
Welcome. I'm Marcia Rhodes, and with me is Mr. Ken Pinnock, Director of the Arizona Operations of the Mountain States Employers Council. Ken is a former HR practitioner who is a frequent speaker on how to build positive workplace cultures. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate the chance to be here.
Ken, a few weeks ago I had the pleasure of attending your workshop titled Workplace Positive in Challenging Times. In that, you devoted some time to ideas on how to help employees cope during times of uncertainty. Tell us more.
Well, yes, Marcia, right now it is a time of uncertainty. While the economic recovery is occurring, from what we hear, there are still periods of uncertainty within organizations. We're beginning to see employers allocate a little more money toward merit budgets. We're seeing some benefits be reinstated, such as tuition reimbursement programs, for example. But at the same time, there continues to be uncertainty amongst employees in terms of job security, employers concerned about employee retention. And so it's firms that have done well in uncertain economic times appear to do a couple of things very well. One is they're effective at acknowledging uncertainty and, in fact, fear, and confronting fear in the workplace. And they're also quite effective at really building on the positive, reinforcing and building positive states of behavior and leadership practices such as courage and optimism and resilience.
Remind our audience, why is it critically important to address fear and worry in the workplace?
Well, people, human beings, we don't do well with uncertainty, and in fact our brains are directly impacted when we're in uncertain or fearful situations. How this plays out in the workplace is when there is a good deal of fear in the workplace, you'll often see a drop in creativity, a decline in risk-taking on the part of employees, collaborative partnerships within the workplace can be damaged. There can also be a toll on individuals' health due to ongoing fear and uncertainty. And in fact, Edwards Deming often commented that where there's fear in the workplace, there will be wrong numbers. So it does become a management issue to try to manage the amount of fear that is a result of the loss and the changes that have occurred over the last 2 to 3 years.
Would you then consider a positive workplace part and parcel of a total rewards package?
Well, I would. I think employees, when you look at employee engagement, when you look at productivity, some of the states and behaviors that are often exhibited by leaders are very positive. And these can play out in terms of appreciation. It can play out in terms of managers acting in a courageous, positive manner, facilitating an environment where employees feel that they can take risks, and actually by empowering employees and taking away some control and giving employees more control. And so yes, recognition programs are a concrete behavior of workplaces that exhibit a very positive environment.
Ken, in your workshop, you touched on the concept of positive deviance. Tell us some more about that concept.
Positive deviance is a very interesting problem-solving, solution-generating methodology. It was operationalized in the mid to late 1990s by the late Dr. Jerry Sternin, who realized that in any given community or organization, given the same constraints and resources, there are those individuals or teams or members of the community that simply function better. So given the same constraints, they are able to perform at much higher levels. And we see this in organizations as well. And he identified these as positive deviants, where they're deviating from the norm, but in a very positive, exceptional way.
For organizations who are looking at this for the first time, creating a positive workplace culture, what are some steps they can take tomorrow?
One thing they can do is look around their organization and identify employees who are exhibiting the behaviors that they want and that are needed. Who are your high performers, your top salespeople, who are your innovators, and looking at a starting point of if that's the behavior you want to facilitate is to identify those behaviors and then begin to look at the positive deviance methodology. And what that involves in is one, identifying the end state of what you want, whether it's increased sales or it's more innovation, and then looking at those employees in the world of our work that are actually exhibiting behaviors that are working, the positive, the exceptional behaviors. Then it's a matter of really involving them in terms of what are the behaviors that they're doing and can those be replicated. The advantage of the positive deviance methodology, unlike the best practice traditions that we've come to know over the last couple of decades, is positive deviance acknowledges that the answers to some of the most difficult challenges come from within the organization, not without. And so the advantage of that as well is that other employees are more readily to accept something that's coming from within versus someone coming from the outside saying, this is how you can do this better.
What are some of the effects of a positive workplace culture on the bottom line?
There is interesting data coming from, for example, the University of Michigan around a related field called positive organizational scholarship. Basically what this is looking at are these positive states of the courage, the resilience, gratitude, forgiveness, optimism. The greater that these behaviors are exhibited, particularly by leaders and subsequently employees, the results on the bottom line have shown greater revenue growth, they've shown higher customer satisfaction scores, and they've also been correlated with a greater number of innovation in terms of new services or technologies.
Now, you've mentioned gratitude a couple of times now. Are you referring to gratitude on the part of the employer or the employee or both?
Really on the part of both. Over the past few years when there has been organizational loss, whether that being a coworker who is no longer with the organization, or if an employee's job duties have been changed or added to, or training opportunities or promotional opportunities have been lost. The more that an employer can show appreciation and gratitude, acknowledging the impact, but on the part of the employees that are left behind or left with the organization, and the more that employees in turn can reciprocate gratitude or appreciation that the organization is still there, they're still a part of it, those kinds of behaviors have been shown to facilitate faster recovery and better overall performance on the people who are remaining with the organization.
Can you give us tangible examples of companies or employers that exhibited positive states and because of that thrived during the economic uncertainty?
There are a number of organizations that have very interesting histories that they were not only born during times of various recessions, but have actually been able to grow and thrive. And organizations such as CNN, Trader Joe's, Hyatt Hotels, Panera Bread are examples where they were able to manage through times of uncertainty. And one of the elements that they really built upon were positive states amongst employees, and as well as acknowledging the issue that fear is something that needs to be confronted and managed. So while not able to be necessarily banished from the organization, they can acknowledge its presence and better able to manage it.
Many people are quick to blame the economy for the resulting fear and anxiety in the workplace, but trends have shown that some of this fear and anxiety existed even before the economic recession. Do you have the same observation?
I do. It's working with employers like I do in my organization. We see effective management practices, and we also see management practices that can really facilitate this fear and uncertainty. And often it can be built around unrealistic time frames, unrealistic deadlines on work. It can be built on using public humiliation. That's a bit of a strong word, but publicly embarrassing employees. One example was an employer that posted employee performance review scores for everyone to see. And so when there's possible treatment or outcomes like that, it can create an environment really where the workforce is paralyzed. and people will not want to step out, will not want to be creative, and the unfortunate part of that is it's those kinds of behaviors, taking risks, being creative, that organizations need more than ever from their workforce. And when fear is a part of it, all of those very desirable behaviors and actions actually stop.
Ken, thank you so much for sharing your insight and experiences on how to build a positive workplace culture.
Thank you, Marcia.
For World at Work, I'm Marcia Rhodes.